really about post-gift communication. So the emphasis there is post-gift. So just wanted to ask each of you, how many of you have already received at least one gift toward round one? So I know, Renee, you've told us you have. Maria, have you guys
Not
gotten a gift yet? Okay, not yet.
Mhm.
And Luke, did you?
Yeah, I have. Which I
Okay,
have
so
pretty cool testimony after this weekend.
tell us. We'd love to hear it.
So I'll be honest, after our call on Friday, I was pretty bummed out because you know, we've been struggling trying to raise money and stuff, and it seems like everybody just says you're doing a great thing and that's about it. And I actually went on a men's retreat right after our call and ended up talking to a guy that I didn't know anybody at this men's retreat. We're at a brand new church, and ended up talking to a guy, sharing my story and my heart. He's like, oh yeah, I grew up in foster care and I was in a group home and I aged out, and I love what you're doing. And then he was like, you know what, God's been telling me to bring my checkbook all weekend and I didn't bring it. He goes, but I want to get together this week because I want to cover your costs and I want to do this. And I ended up actually getting 2 massive donations coming down the mountain on Sunday. So it was really awesome.
Wow. That is so cool. Thank you for sharing that, Luke. That encourages all of us because God does work, and he works in different times, in different ways, just when we know we need it. So I'm really excited for you that you got that confirmation and affirmation. So post gift means that once we have a gift, then what? Because the gift really is a representation of people saying, I care about the thing that you're doing. I want to make a difference with you. And I think what you're doing, what you just heard, is really important. So I want to invest. I feel God calling me to do that. Now, if you haven't got all of round one, you will get it soon. So if you're feeling stuck or if you need a little help, go ahead, make sure to reach out to either Jonathan or myself. We'll talk with you and pray with you, and we'll move forward. Also take time with your prayer partner. If, just be honest. If you're saying, hey, I'm to this place, but reach out, encourage one another that way. But what happens after you get the gift? So any gift, that could be a small gift, could be someone saying, hey, I'm willing to give you $50 a month, surprise. What happens then? What happens when you get that decent size, as Luke says, the big gifts? What happens then? So what are your auto responses? And then what else will happen? And that's the big question, is what then? So what are the things that are going to naturally happen automatically that are set up through your donor management system, your donor processing? And just think about it. These people, especially with this grant, these are the people that are really your champions. They're the ones that say, I'm interested in what you're doing. I want to get behind what this is going to help you accomplish. Number one, it's going to help you reach that $10,000 goal that's going to accomplish for each of you different things that's going to make a lasting impact on your ministry. So to say that to them. And then number two, it's also going to help you build other donors that are going to be lasting so that your entire ministry is growing and expanding. So these are key partners. Without them, you couldn't do what you do. So think about, how do you want to communicate with a partner, with someone that has that kind of investment after they've given a gift? Mm-hmm. So I'm sure some of you have done this and thought about it and probably even do it well, but this is an opportunity now to just go back and reflect on it, look at it afresh. So think about, what are your auto replies? So if you haven't seen one lately, you could, as we've often suggested, go in, give yourself a donation, even $5, find out what that auto pride looks like. People expect them. So it's one of the basics that is required by the IRS, is to be able to get receipts. You don't have to get them immediately after it's processed online, but does help your donor track and know that you've actually received their gift. And that is an important thing to a donor. They want to know that you received it. If they hear nothing, if they write a check, if they hand it and they send it into you and they don't hear anything for days, a week, heaven forbid, longer, they wonder, did you even receive it? So really looking at, what are the different ways that people are giving? How are you responding? What's your auto response? And then also say, now, what do you want that to look like to show that you appreciate your donor? So first thing there, review your auto response. When does it go out? Does it go out immediately? What's the subject line? A lot of times, that does matter, because sometimes people, when they get a receipt, one of the few things they read is the subject line. And if you just say thank you and everyone says thank you, it's not a bad thing to say, but it's also really not the thing that's really going to make you stand out. What else does it say on there? Do you just give some basic jargon? Do you tell a story of how their money is going to be being put to use right now? Is it branded? Is it something that shows that they go, all right, I gave a gift to this group and here's the branding I get back. It makes sense. I've got confidence. And then how does that come across? Does it come across like a transaction or like a sincere, truly grateful thank you? That's the first impression someone gets, is that auto response. So think about, how do you write it? Don't try to write it like a professional fundraiser, but like somebody that's talking. Like if you're sitting down there handing you a check over coffee, what would you say? What would you want them to hear from you? Sometimes even in that auto response, you can link that to a video that's on your website that might be an impact story, something that you want them to see. So if you've got a great auto story on your website, it's a great thing to connect it to. But if you ever change on a website, make sure you also change your auto reply in that. So the language is being able to say to somebody, once they've given the gift, when you ask for a gift, you say, this is what your gift will do. When you've said thank you, you're saying, this is what your gift is doing. This is what your gift is doing now. And so you can even make that something very tangible and practical that is going on right now. We are meeting with men on a regular basis to, take them fishing, and we are doing this now. So it's telling them what is their gift making a difference to do. When you do that on past an auto reply, then there's this idea of, what about thank yous? Will you, if someone gives you a large gift, are you going to then write a handwritten thank you? Are you going to send something to them in the mail in addition to that? If you're giving a large gift and someone just gives you an auto thank you, let's say you're at a birthday party and you give a gift, oh, thank you so much. Everyone expects that. That's the minimum you're going to do. It's manners to say thank you. But when you say afterwards, you go home and then you sit down and you write a thank you note and you say, really appreciate the thoughtfulness or whatever heartfelt thing, that follow-up, they will say between 24 and 48 hours after a gift, it's good to have either a follow-up card, text, or phone call. So if you weren't with them in person, a phone call, particularly for a large gift. So something to think about. And when it comes to round two, that will be, because many of the people you're bringing on are going to be first-time donors. So that will be their very first interaction with you. That is in direct response to giving a gift. So that's why you have to want to think about, what does that auto look like? Is it going to reflect that first impression that you want to have, so that they will continue to decide, this is an organization that is like me, they're friendly, they care, they value what I've done, and I want to keep giving to this organization. So that's why auto replies are important. Easy to overlook them, to forget about them. They're done, they're coming out. That's good, but it is good to look at them at least once a year to be able to test and see whether they are saying what you want them to say or not. So this question is, what's the big deal? Just a simple thank you. Well, the reality is there's no just about saying thank you. Thank yous matter more than you know. You're busy, they're busy. But when you take time in a nonprofit, when people are giving toward it tells them not that you just receive the gift and you appreciate the gift, but you're actually going to be putting that gift into work, which builds trust. They want to know that it's not just sitting somewhere and you don't know what to do with it, or it's going to go into a place that they don't know. You want them to know, we are putting your gift to work right now. There's action behind this. But that's the minimum. This is where you can really shine and go that extra mile. Like I said, writing a thank you note, texting someone, picking up the phone and making a phone call, all of those things kind of take it to that next level when you are able to connect with them and say, it's really what you've done matters. Together, we're going to make a difference. And it's interesting when you think about major gift donors. So if someone is giving you $1,000 or more, or $500, a pretty sizable gift, the way that you thank them will often affect how they see the relationship going forward. Trust is at the basis for that. But it's interesting that in the industry of major donors, they will say that they try to thank a major donor 5 times. 5 times. First time is at the ask. So if you're talking to somebody and they say they're going to give to you, to immediately thank you. That would be awesome. Then in the follow-up, could it be a receipt like you're getting here, like we just talked about? Then there is that personal thing, a text, a phone call. Jonathan, one of the things he did is he would take a video of himself. If he went into the post to get his mail and there was a gift there, he would take a little video walking back from the mailbox. Thank you, just got your gift, holding it in hand. Something simple, something genuine that he could just text it to him right away. But a personal thank you. And then going beyond that is the next time you see that person saying thank you again. So 5 times is what most professional major gift donors try to do, say thank you to someone 5 times, because it's all about relationship building and trust building. And if you want to have a lasting relationship with someone that's investing money that they have, worked hard for, and they want to make a difference, then they want to hear from us. They want to know that we're actually doing this together. We see them as loyal partners, and we really want to make a difference. So if you want to hit the ball out of the park within 24 hours, that kind of a personal thank you is really the ideal to be able to do. There are tons of ways to do that. I hit a lot of those examples. I would say, it's worth doing a little card. If you have a branded thank you card that, we put out a few of them. I don't know if you've ever seen ours, but we will often send a thank you note out to our donors. Oh, I sent my last one. That has just a Venture 19 logo on it. Something that then when they get it, they go, oh, okay, this is what that is. I use personal ones as well. Sometimes it's merch. If you've got a shirt from something and it fits that context, send someone who goes, you're a valued partner. We have this shirt here. I want you to feel like you're part of the family. That's a way to go above and beyond. There's an ED, a guy that is known for his cookies. And he actually creates, bakes up cookies and gives it to all of his major donors after a gift. And they look forward to his batch of cookies. I don't know what he puts in them, but it's one of the things he's known for. It's a way to say thank you. And people look forward to that. Another idea is having one of the people that you are serving say thank you. Taking a video of people, I was thinking, Luke, after you go out fishing and the guy catches his first fish and you go, hey, you know what? There's some people that have made this trip possible. Can we do a little video of you and your fish? Look at the fish I caught, thank you. And having a beneficiary be a part of a thank you, really powerful way for people to feel connected to what you're doing. One of the people we work with in another organization, they are known for having a box of dog treats to go to one of their major gift donors that is a dog lover. And so I don't know if it's he or his wife makes these dog treats, but they have these special pumpkin applesauce dog treats that whenever they go to this one major donor, he knows that he's going to bring those. And of course the dog knows too. So the dog runs up and is always there, when he comes to visit, to say thank you. Don't make it complicated, but I'm just sharing ideas that can make it stand out, and that it's genuine, it's sincere, it's from you, represents you. Those are the kinds of things that really do make a difference. So that be creative, and don't get to that rut where you feel like, oh no, I got to do more thank yous. But this is an opportunity to just really shine with those people that are committed. And when you do that, use the language of I, not we, because that's more personal. Instead of saying, we are grateful for your gift, I am grateful. That's a personal level. And when you talk about you've made my day. So a lot of you language and I language, that shows relationship building. So as you're being genuine, you can say, why does this matter to you personally? This has been something, Lucas, you just said, I was discouraged coming into this weekend, but you made my day because you showed me how God wanted to provide. And when you say that to somebody, they're like, wow, that's cool. God used me to really benefit you. That's exactly what I needed. Donors need to know that they are needed. We don't have this all figured out. We don't have it all wrapped up. Sometimes with nonprofits, we tend to want to look like we have it all figured out. But then for a donor, it's like, well, if you have it all figured out, why do you need me? So when you say thank you, you're basically saying it's what we needed. And you want to always say to people, here's the need that we have. You don't want to say it's all figured out. So most organizations forget to communicate really what are those needs, because we don't like feeling vulnerable or weak, but donors want to respond and meet needs. Impactful, how is this going to help? What do you see this is going to do? And so when it's this micro grant, keep talking about that thing, that you're going to use your $10,000 for, and why is that important? What is that going to accomplish for your ministry? And so I'm thinking, Renee, if you're talking about a van, we're planning already some of our next trips where kids, talk about that. How is it going to make a difference? We've got, kids that have been excited to go to the beach for the first time in their entire lives, and this van's going to help us take it there. So talking about the impact, and then always make it as casual and informal. Communicate like you're talking to a valued friend, someone you really trust and that you appreciate greatly. So that gets you to a place where you're not just like everybody else, but you're building a real relationship, which is what donors look for. Here's an example of one that came to a bigger group. So that's wonderful if you're doing one-on-one, but in round 2, you're doing it to more than just one person. I got this one, and it came with this title that said, we did it, big old icon celebration. Together we met the match. So it's so important to be able to, once you accomplish something, particularly round 2, when you get your round 2 match, you want to celebrate that. And this is an example of a big match. It was a $30,000 match. And it came out and it said, big thank you, Heather. Thank you to all of our donors who gave so generously this year end, not only to meet our match of $30,000, but to exceed it. Praise God. Unfortunately, they didn't talk about their impact and what they're going to use the gift for, which would be the only thing I would say would be excellent to do. But that picture next to those are participants, beneficiaries of their work. And if you clicked on what was in the email, you would have actually gotten a message of thank you from that group that was from Sierra Leone. And so that is one example of just a way to say, we did it. Don't forget to celebrate what you did, because you as a leader, you're going, oh man, we did it finally. And now you're on to the next thing. But you want to carry it all the way through. And then give updates. So updates is so important, because when there's really a rhythm in asking, there's an ask, and you're doing that. That's the season we're in right now, is getting your round 1 match. So you do the ask, then you do the thank, and then you do the reporting. And the reporting, it shifts from the first time you're saying, this is our need. Second time is, thank you, this is what your gift is going to be doing. Last one is, here is what has been done. So now you're reporting on what you have actually already done. And it could be a report with your matching people for round one saying, we have hit the match. We now can create the match of 5,000. We actually exceeded it. Tell them what you got and say, now we're going to be getting monthly donors. We've already got 2, so giving people an update that way. And then even an update on some of the ministry things that you're excited about that you're doing, you've already done this summer, and why you're excited, the impact that it's making. So give people that understanding. And this highlights, what are the timeframes? What are the goals? Simply so that they remember, oh yeah, they're doing this, this month. Okay, I forgot about that. Yeah, okay, here's what their goal is. They're trying to reach this. Here's where we're at compared to doing that. But really help people understand, where are you in that progress? A lot of times donors will say that they meet with nonprofit leaders, they talk to them, they have a great ask, and they give to it, and then they don't hear almost anything, period. And then till the next newsletter, but there's nothing personal. There's nothing sent out that said, thank you, here's your update. So if people feel like they're in a cattle call, especially after round one, it really is one of those negatives. So think about, how do you want to do an update to those people, particularly at round one? And then at round two, you'll be able to do that as well. But you can focus on that a little more later. So with round two, a couple things to just remember. Look at your auto receipts again. If you make your auto receipt specific to round one, then you have to shift it. If it's good and you've looked at it already, no problem. I love to, once people decide to become a monthly donor, if they join your monthly donor program, I love having a big response email. Now, I'll tell you, the best email I ever got once was, I bought my dad, don't judge me, a Trump bobblehead, because my dad is one of the biggest Trump fans in the whole world. And so I bought him this Trump bobblehead, and it went to, I don't remember the place I bought it, was Patriot something or other. And when I ordered it, I just did it, and I did that. I got this email back that was the most creative, the most surprising email I have ever got after purchasing something. It was like, the title was, I think it was all functions have stopped in our warehouse, which kind of makes you go, what? When you read that title. So a subject line caught me. In the inside, it was, we just got the news. Heather bought a bobblehead. Our people are hard at work. We're moving our, there's this, it was kind of, way extreme, but it made me laugh. I just thought how creative that was. And I felt seen and heard, and God knows how many bobbleheads were sold. But the reality was, there was a big deal that was being met. And how much more is it a big deal when people join us for the kind of work we're doing on an ongoing basis? Even a thank you or a call or a text, it could be from a board member, it could be from you, it could be, but somebody that says, we really are grateful, because you're not going to be bringing in 50 monthly donors. But if you've got a monthly donor, why not be personal one-on-one right now when you can? You won't be able to do it if you have 200 or more monthly donors, but you will be able to do it right now. And then update along the way specifically for those monthly donors. So here's an example. And I just threw in the game changer language because who knew if DJ, if he's got that going. But I thought, thank you for joining our community of game changers. Can't tell you how encouraging it is to our whole team that you're now part of the passionate community of people who are planting churches and helping kids know God month after month. Okay, I'm not a text writer, and I did this very short. You can make these better sentences, but the gist is your partnership makes a difference, not only in the lives of kids in some of the hardest places on earth, but when kids are discipled, families are strengthened, communities flourish, and nations are impacted as those kids become leaders. So it just kind of, that's what DJ talks about a lot. So he says, I can't wait to share stories of what God has done and will continue doing because of your faithful partnership. Click here and read one of our latest stories of life transformation. Think about that. If that's the email you get after becoming a monthly donor, won't that make you smile and just affirm, okay, this is going to be fun. This is going to be unique. As you heard, some people actually send out a little packet afterwards. I think that that's something that Liz does, but she didn't do it right away. But it could just be, a sticker. One of the groups that I was monthly donor with, they've sent me stickers here and there, just as I have joined a monthly donor program. So just thinking about how do you want to welcome people into this and respond. So check your updates, genuine relational thank yous within 24 hours, set the tone for a real relationship partnership going forward, provide updates, share impact stories. That's the basics for bringing people on in your post communication. So wanted to just take a moment here and see, are there some comments or thoughts that you have about post communication that you've been wondering about, or even one of your best practices that have really worked well? Nothing? Okay. All right. So my guest speaker coming on says he doesn't have this Zoom link. Victoria, would you be, I sent it at some point, but goodness, who knows where I put it. I think it was in a calendar. Let me ask him that before we jump on. Victoria, can you look to see Dirk Hop? If you can send today's link to him by email with that. Yep. Thank you. Yep. Yeah. So I'm gonna hop over here because he'll come on, but Dirk is, so this topic is so practical. So we're gonna have Dirk come on, and Dirk is has been connected to Venture 19 for a lot of years, really, literally since Jonathan stepped out as Venture 19. He's actually part of our strategic advisory team. So he started in working with CCV on the missions team. And then as he continued that process, I love how he says it. He's like, I'm just wired for practical things, and I love numbers. And so his background in finance really got him to the place where he said he wanted to step out and basically have his own business and working in the area of finance. So he started out by doing finance for profits. Love his title, Professor Quick. That's what he goes by. But he's been doing this now specifically for 5 years. I'm just going to tell him it is coming. Oh, there he is.
He's here. He's here.
Perfect. Awesome. He's like, did I get the invite? I'm like, yes. So he's Dirk, can you hear me? I'm in the process of introducing you, but your mugshot on my screen is probably not as nice as your real good looking face. But Dirk's been doing this for 5 years, working with QuickBooks, with nonprofits. Currently, he's actually been expanding to work with more nonprofits. We keep handing him people. And so, he's gained more and more individuals. Look at you. He's just got a little bit more facial hair. I haven't seen you recently.
Yeah, and it's a little grayer than it used to be.
That why you have the hat on, so we can't see the gray?
Sure.
All right. So Dirk, tell us, so you moved into this, I told them about CCV missions team, that you were on that and that you started this. Why did you start the work that you're doing now?
I guess to have impact. I mean, having been through ministry for a number of years and just my makeup as a person, I want what I do to have purpose, to have benefit, right? So, I did the ministry route, and that didn't point me in the direction of the impact I was hoping for. And so when I came out of ministry, I kind of did an inventory of where I'd been, what my experience was, who God made me to be. And it was really a number cruncher. I had 20 years experience with bookkeeping, and I thought, well, I may not be on the front lines of making change in this world, but I will be on the back end of it, which I'm sort of a behind the scenes guy anyway, like a subversive, I kind of think of myself as. And so, if I can free everybody up to go and make positive impact in the world by, taking from them or handling for them the back office stuff, then that's the direction I'm going.
Well, first of all, we aren't going to tell CCV that you didn't have purpose there. We won't do that. But what we will say is that we're glad that you're doing it, because I think, most leaders, as they're sitting here listening to you going, oh, I want people like Dirk who want to just come alongside, support. I don't care if it's number crunching, admin, anything that allows a leader to be able to do more of other things that they feel called to do. That it takes a village, it takes a body to be able to do this kind of work. So we're really glad that you are doing it. And I know firsthand, having been a part of organizations that you now are serving, that when you have a skilled, knowledgeable person doing these things, it makes all the difference in the world. So welcome today. We're glad that you can be part. We're going to look at this idea of accounting basics. So Dirk's the expert, I'm not. So when I say basics, this is from a non-expert perspective. He could go on a long time. But, when we sat down, one of the first things Dirk said, do these people have an accounting tool? And I said, well, I don't know. Maybe some do, maybe some don't. But type into the chat, what is your accounting tool? Is it QuickBooks? Is it Xero? Do you use Excel? What are you currently using to track all of the processing of funds that you have? So that's different than like Bloomerang, that's tracking your actual donors, but the side that's tracking your fundraising. So we've got QuickBooks, and Luke, are you a QuickBook guy too? Okay, perfect. So Dr. Quick, or Professor Quick, excuse me. I don't know which it is. Are you doctor now? Have you kind of gone from professor?
I like doctor. Yeah. You just gave me a blessing.
That's right.
Doctor.
In ministry, we call people bishops or apostles, but for you, we're just going to move you up to doctor.
Wow.
That is a promo.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Okay, so we got a bunch of people. So for Dirk, what do you recommend? Is that why you called yourself Professor Quick? Because you recommend QuickBooks?
No, it's funny because my passion is for education and small business. And so when I looked at what was available out there for small business education, it's all academic and not practical and lengthy, right? Like, oh, if you want to go get a degree, it's 2 years, 4 years, whatever. And I thought, we can help people start and run a small business quickly. And so that was the idea with Quick, that it is quick and efficient small business learning. But it's a happy accident that QuickBooks is the software that I use primarily for sure. Often. Is everyone QuickBooks? Did everyone say okay?
Yeah,
good.
They did. They did say that. And so the second point there is that we integrate whatever you're using for your accounting system with your CRM, which is your contact resource management. So your donor management system. So if Bloomerang, we know Bloomerang does integrate on that, but having something that is for fundraising integrate directly with that, definitely helpful to do that. So you're not spending your time exporting and importing on different things. So the others of you, Maria and Luke, does your fundraising system directly integrate with your accounting system? Or you can say, I don't have the fundraising system, or I don't know if they connect. Makes a big difference as you grow and expand.
Well, we don't have a Bloomerang or anything like that. We use Planning Center. So it can, but we don't want to bring in things by batch. So I actually download and actually add in everybody into QuickBooks separately, each person.
Right. So you have to do it by hand. Mm-hmm. Okay. There are some CRMs that are pretty low cost that do integrate and will help you significantly in the fundraising side to be able to potentially look at down the road as you grow. Luke, do you have a fundraising platform for contact management?
Yeah, I'm using DonorBox, which seems to work really well because you can do all the embedded forms and stuff with it, and it integrates with QuickBooks. And actually, just from your point from earlier too, I like it has a little bar on the right side, so as you get donations, it like keeps them up for 5 days. There's like a reminder of like, hey, reach out to this person that's donated, which is really cool.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That is a great benefit, having those kinds of things where they do talk. All right, then third thing there, really basic, but setting up a clear chart of accounts. I would imagine most people, but Dirk, what is a chart of accounts? Why is it so important?
Yeah, the chart of accounts is just every bucket that you're going to assign inflows and outflows into. Is about the simplest way I can put it. So it's the chart of accounts is your Grand Central Station. When you find that, you are looking at every single account that you're using, that you have available to assign inflows and outflows to. And all of those are going to show up on your P&L and your balance sheet separately.
Yeah, and with QuickBooks, you basically, every time you input stuff, you're kind of creating your chart of accounts, whether you have it defined clearly or not. But having been both in a nonprofit, large, and on boards, the clearer, the more well thought through your chart of accounts to be able to get good reports on the backside, really critical from a practical perspective. Allocate expenses consistently. I think this is probably the biggest headache I've ever heard from bookkeepers and from finance teams with the program staff, is that inconsistent of why do we put things in certain buckets, or some people call envelopes, whatever, but the proverbial what groups are you putting them in? Tracking all income and expenses in a consistent way. It relieves Dr. Quick from losing his hair, not just becoming gray, but losing it in the end on his day job. And then being able to determine what reports do you need. And so this is something for you to help manage. It is saying, what reports are you going to want to look at to manage, and what reports your board want to be able to look at. So, when it comes to accounting basics, Dirk, what do you wish every ministry leader knew when they first start building out their accounting function?
Yeah, I think an interesting one to say is that you can always change it, right? So if you're small, I mean, I work with a lot of people who build their chart of accounts, and I've worked with groups of people where we have imported a template, if you will. QuickBooks doesn't give that throws a ton of junk in right from the get-go. So with this particular group, we wiped the entire thing out and imported what we wanted in. But you can always change things. Obviously, the more transactions you have and the farther down the road, the harder it is to go. You can always change things, but if you need to move a bunch of transactions, doing batch moving and stuff like that is possible. So, but the thing that I was going to say in general about why do this, or so to speak, is I always say, number one, compliance. Obviously, you've got to do your reporting, your 990, et cetera. Number two is informational. Are you doing okay? Are you profitable, so to speak? And the nonprofit spin on that was, are you using the money for what you said you were going to? And three, for fundraising, or grants, raising capital, essentially. So those are the three things that you should use this for. It's really helpful for that.
Yeah, I think it's very wise to be able to say you can always change it. But part of the reason we're doing this today is because when you start working with grants, there are different kinds of income to be aware of, things that might affect your chart of accounts, the way you input expenses. And so to learn about how to do that as you are growing and to set it up, it's one of those things that when you set it up well with somebody that knows what they're doing, it pays off in the long run. So you aren't having to, like you said, scrub an entire something. That's not fun. Nobody likes to hear, okay, we need to scrub that. We need to completely eliminate all those.
And I've worked with, just even recently, I've worked with two different clients, one who we kind of had to go back on, 700 transactions a month. That's not fun. The other one was 700 transactions through the last year and a half. Much, much better. Still a lot, but much, much better. But if you can, start off on the right foot as much as possible, kind of understand what each of your few that are coming in now, the better.
Yeah. One thing I wish was clear in the nonprofit world is this, that there are different types of income, and we all know and love what unrestricted income is, that income that really doesn't have any limits on it. And we want to get as much as we can of that. Designated income and restricted income sometimes get confused because the language is sometimes in the for-profit world, it's different in a context. So in a nonprofit world, designated income is really, it's kind of one of those commitments that we have to donors that they give to us with the designation. Even for me, when I raise my support, it goes to an organization and it's not actually restricted money by definition of restriction in the actual way. But the organization that collects that money has made a commitment to its donor to give that money toward my support as a way to say we're going to honor that designation. So it's really about honoring, but legally the organization can use the money any way it seems fit. And that doesn't mean that you don't have responsibility, that you wouldn't need to want to communicate. There were times, even particularly in COVID, where when all of the PPP money that was for nonprofits out there came out, my organization said, hey, you've got money in your account. Can we use some of that money, because we have a shortfall right now with staffing. So I went out to my donors and said, I've got this situation and I'm grateful for all that you've given, but I communicated with them the interest and then gave them an opportunity to let me know if anybody felt that wasn't appropriate or didn't want their monies to be done that way. And I didn't get anybody to say that. People were like, of course, whatever is needed. So communication integrity is really around designated income, but restricted income, this is where there are legal things. And it usually comes when there is an agreement about we'll give you money if blah, blah, blah. And so grants are that way, foundations are that way. And so you do need to treat them as separate, and they are not to be used for anything else unless you got specific permission. Now, with organizations like us, this grant, we're not very formal. If you get a family foundation you work with, they might be a little bit more formal. If you work with government grants, it's really serious. So there's levels of restricted income and who cares, but the goal is to say, how do we treat it so that it is separate and we track it that way and we don't get ourselves in trouble when we've made a commitment. So Dirk, what else did you want to say about that?
Yeah, I could spend an hour on this alone. And cut me off, give me the hook whenever. I'll try not to go long, but to me, this is the most important slide, the most important thing we're going to talk about, because there are some slippery slopes here. There's some traps here. And so I can't stress enough to those on this call to make sure you understand the difference between restricted and unrestricted, and don't accidentally fall into the restricted income category. And so just know that only the givers are the only people that can restrict donations, right? So but it can be the circumstances. I mean, if let's say you go to a dinner or something and you say, hey, we're raising funds for this particular thing. It's not for your whole ministry, it's one particular thing. And you don't qualify that anywhere, meaning but we may use it where most needed is the typical language, right? That can technically, now I'm a bookkeeper, I'm a numbers guy, so everything I say is going to be the letter of the law. You know what I mean? I'm not nuanced. This is the black and white. And of course I know we don't live in black and white, but I want to give you the black and white so you at least know. So if you were at a dinner and you were to say that, technically that's restricted, legally, tax-wise, if not at minimum morally, right? Or ethically. I mean, you told people we're raising money for this particular project, and if you ultimately use that money for something else, it's a little bit of a little unethical.
Ethical.
So just go through the steps that you need to make sure that you don't accidentally do restricted income. I know, like on websites and things like that, one common strategy or typical strategy is when you take donations on your website that you don't give options for specific projects. So, you know, let's say you did do a dinner and you said, we're raising money for this project, and go to our website, you're not going to have a click down that says, this money is earmarked for that particular project. That's basically restricted. Just have everything go into general as much as you possibly can. So that's,
Yeah, and
go ahead.
throwing out with that same idea, I think that's one of the reasons why when we talk about monthly donors that we do try to make it a broad thing, and you don't try to make it that one-on-one. Remember how we've talked about $50 equals this. You do get, that's that gray area when you start making commitments. And I mean, he is the letter of the law, and that's why we want people like Dirk in our life. From a when we went to an actual lawyer, they said the only thing that, you know, you're going to be nailed with restricted wise is when you have a grant, or if you shake on like a major donor handshake. But when you do an event and you're bringing that in, they say it's a really gray line. It is more of an ethical issue that you're doing. And so ECFA says you need to have a donor bill of rights that says, how do you plan to use people's money? That we want to honor these things. We want to communicate with you. So it's really down that ethical line of how do we want to treat it? But we do say, as much as possible, there are times to raise money for a particular project. And that's absolutely fine. And our goal for today is to go, all right, clearly this is restricted. But you have to look at how do you want to communicate what you're raising money for? And then, you know, does that strap you in some way? So you're going to get different answers for different CPAs. Some are a little bit more in the gray area. I love Dirk because more of the black and white. He's going to keep you, you know, tight and, you know, honest and challenge those things. So that's good to see. But the main point here is there is a difference for designated and restricted. And we are talking in this grant restricted money. So because you've said we are going to do this, we're going to raise this, and sometimes people get confused about that. So I'm not going to spend a lot of
too fast.
Oh, sorry. You wanted to say something else?
I got another half hour on that. I was kidding.
I thought I can't have it. No. What else did you want to say?
So real quick, the other thing I was going to say about getting around restricted, unrestricted that I've seen people do on their website is they'll have, and I think it's probably going back to your Bill of Rights. But there's fine print, so to speak, on there that says, you know, maybe you've given for this project, but we reserve the right to reallocate these funds as we see necessary. So, you know, would that hold up in court? You know, maybe not, but that's the other thing I've seen in a practical sense, them use. The other thing I'll attack is the designated income. I know that is not an accounting term. I don't like anything about designated. I wish you guys would just forget the idea of designated income, because it is an unbelievably slippery slope. You know, designated income, the way I understand nonprofits use it from Heather practically is it's not legally restricted. So it's designated income is unrestricted income is where it goes. But you are sort of self-assigning it as or earmarking it. Now, you know, there's no thing there. The one thing I will say that is a little tricky is income that is for a specific person. That is an extremely dangerous scenario where it matters greatly what donors put in the memo on a check, which is shocking. But if, and let me read this because I saw this on the thing and I remember reading this, donations made to the ministry with the following description in the memo line: Christmas gift for missionary Heather Hicks. That's not tax deductible. You can't have that. You can't have people writing that.
Right.
Preference for ministry Heather Hicks missionary, that is tax deductible, because the difference is, and the test is, whether the donor's intent is to benefit the ministry or the individual. So I would just make sure that your donors aren't writing in the memo, this is a gift for you, or things like that, because you're getting into a dangerous territory there. So I could go on and on, but I'll leave it there.
Yeah. Yeah, and because designated income is a challenge. You know, when you start thinking about your income, you want to think about it and understand what is restricted. That's the real concerned area.
Mhm.
It's true. Everything else that isn't restricted is unrestricted. But I don't see it designated. I know this is going to be heartburn, but I don't see it going away, because we want to connect donors with what they care about without it becoming an actual commitment that the organization takes on. So it is an honoring of that. And how do we do that? So, you know, when, you can get into a lot of detail, and I've lived that world because I've raised support for a long time. But the real issue here is the restricted income, and just clarifying today that that's what we're talking about. So when you look at your chart of accounts, you are going to have different kinds of breakdowns of income. You don't just put it in one big bucket. And what that question is, what do you want to be looking at? What is it that you want to separate out, or you and your board to track? And some of it here, you can see the different sources. So you can have subcategories within a certain thing of individuals. You could do monthly recurring donors. You could do major gifts over a certain amount. You can break those down in whatever way you want to be able to get the information, the reports that you want down. Unrestricted revenue by source, grants and other restricted information, and then even program revenue. If some of you do have a fee, then you would want that to be separated out so you could track how much is coming in because of our program. So you do think through what it is you want to separate that out, and particularly to make sure it's clear which things are restricted and keep them categorized together. And then the things that are unrestricted, there you don't see on any chart of accounts designated on there. It's a matter of where it is. You know, if someone's bringing program income in, if you have a scholarship program, that is in a way that scholarships are cross the line from designated to restricted because of the nature of what a scholarship is. So that's where nonprofit lawyers and accountants and CPAs really help, because they tell you, okay, you cross the gray line into this direction. But just, I don't want to get stuck on that page because there's way better things down here. So what do you do when you're tracking actually a grant? So in doing that, we look at what is the restricted income that's coming in. Now, in this case, because it's not just a single match, you have a amount that is being given by a funding source, which would be seen as a grant. That money needs to be marked within your chart of accounts as a grant. Then you're going to have individuals giving. So if you have someone giving $2,500 or Renee, $5,000, then you would want to indicate that person according to your chart of accounts, whether as a major gift or as an individual gift, but some way you need to track it as connected to this grant, because all of that is restricted. And then in round 2, you're going to be getting monthly donors, which typically monthly donors becomes unrestricted, but because this is connected to a match, those are all restricted funds for a year. So you've committed to all of these funds that are coming in for this for a year to go toward a certain particular place. So there, it does mean that you need to have an accounting line that's for grant income. One really critical thing, and I'll let Dirk talk about it, that's classes, tags and some others, but you all use QuickBooks, so classes is the name of it. Using classes to function to track grants as, you know, whatever income, whatever chart of account line, it can track that it's connected to that grant. And then having a dedicated, okay, I'll do those later. So Dirk, talk to us about that whole thing of classes.
Yeah, so, and to let you know, your friends, it's classes for them too in Xero. So I don't know why I didn't remember that, because it's such a problem when I ask them for the class and they say, oh, it's FCE, and I'm like, not the class that, you know. So anyway, classes are just a way of sort of saying it's for this particular thing. So let's say you get a $50,000 grant. You should have a $50,000 line item on your P&L that says what the grant is, and it'll show $50,000. Then you're going to want to, if there's matching funds and or expenses associated with that, you're going to want a way to show that this expense connects to that grant. And the answer to that is classes. So when you go in QuickBooks, you're doing a check or you're doing an expenditure, you're going to type in the account it's for. Well, it's for advertising, let's say. You're not going to make a specific grant advertising expense. You're just going to put it all into your advertising. And then you're going to say how much it's for. And then on the far right, there's the class. And you're going to create a class that says something like 50K grant from XYZ. And that should match the account that you put. And by doing that, and then let's say you get matching funds in a donation, there'll be the class over there. You can class it to that as well. And then what you can do, everything that you have in a class, you can run a P&L by class. And so you can run a P&L that just shows anything related to that grant. And as a result, that's something that you can provide the grantor as proof of the proper use of funds.
Yeah. So here's an example of that P&L that's by class that shows that, yeah, you still have your same chart of accounts. There's individuals that come, but there's some of it that was classified. And so you title that the microgrant, Venture 19 microgrant, $10,000 microgrant, whatever you want to call it. But it'll show in whatever line item, whatever chart of account line item, what income came in, what expenses went out. So it doesn't change anything on your chart of accounts. You just classify it in a great way. So it's a wonderful way to track it. We are not, in this grant, you are not going to be asked to give a report at the end of expenses, but many grants do say, show us how you spent the money. So that's not one of the things we focus on here. It's all on the front end capacity building. But if you have it by class, you can run that report and it'll show how much you spent, how much income came in, and that you did accomplish that. So just something for you to, in terms of going forward and seeing.
And let me just mention that restricted funds don't come up a ton. I mean, in the beginning anyway. I mean, and don't think that, when Martha comes in with $150 and says, I want this $150 to go to X, Y, and Z, that by you taking that, you have to now restrict that. Like small stuff like that, if she were to ever come back and say, look, I want to see an accounting for that, you can show her $150 of receipts towards whatever it was she wanted. So don't go crazy making classes for every little request from a giver. We're talking about the big stuff.
The big stuff that is truly restricted. So that otherwise, because if you have $150, I would probably pull out receipts, but I would say, here's what our program costs. It costs this per person. Your money contributed with all these others, and we raised this much total to accomplish these goals. Yep. I haven't gotten to the place where I've ever had anyone ask me for receipts, but
I haven't heard that either. I do know, I have a client who she comes in every month with $10 and says, this better go to X, Y, and Z. And so, I talked to know the letter of the law. I talked to, CPAs and said, how does that, and just say, look, she comes in and says she wants to see an accounting, just show her a $10 bill every month for her webs, whatever.
Right. Yeah, the bill that it costs to do that, because it's contributing toward it. That's why, it's getting to the place where a major donor might fund something that is a whole something. But when people are contributing to parts of something, that is one of the lines that CPAs will say. If they're not contributing to the whole thing, then really it's unrestricted money designated, and you are spending it. So don't worry, you're spending that. Just show them the expenses that they're contributing toward that.
Yeah, I think most restricted, like you said, most of the time restricted is obvious. It's a contract. It's a contract. It's hard to, you're not going to, and most of the other restricteds I see are because people kind of accidentally fell into asking for it in a restricted way.
Yeah. That's the big thing. Don't ask for it in a restricted way. So that's what those reports look like. So top accounting tips, link your accounting system to your online donor processing system. Make sure you have a grants line. Some of you are using foundations, and if you have foundations and grants, if you want to separate them, I know the more you work in that area, sometimes you need to have more than one line item to differentiate, but for most of us, grants is sufficient, and then you can classify different grants. Good communication between fundraisers and bookkeepers, really important, because what one person dreams, you got to make sure it gets recorded that same way. So having that communication, and then note that this kind of grant is restricted income and should be spent the way you said on your grant application. That's the expectation. We're not going to do any reports, and then when you classify, you find ways to get the kinds of reports. So try that out. And then lastly, but always really important, record all income and expenses consistently. So I know we're over time, but just wanted to give you a chance to ask Dirk if you had other specific accounting questions. And he is always very generous with his time, and he's given us his phone number and his email if you want to connect with him. But yeah, any questions for Dirk before we sign off?
Sorry, Heather, I didn't know we were over time.
No, it's okay. I know it goes fast. 30 minutes goes very fast.
And if anyone asks a question, I'll answer it real fast. So just if that prompts anyone to feel more motivated to ask a quick question or something.
How many of you were already using classes? Were you already doing that? Okay, so yeah, Maria said yes. Maria, you've run businesses, so this is no small thing. Luke, you're using classes as well. It's usually the big thing that people don't do. It's kind of the big aha. So if you guys got that, I think between restricted and unrestricted and classes are the two big things that we try to get across to brand new nonprofits. And for me, one of my pet peeves as a board member is the chart of accounts. Is some of them just are crazy and you can't follow anything. So keeping that clean and crisp is really important. Renee, any question from you? Nope, you're good. All right. Thank you.
I think so. Just taking it all in.
Good. That's what we're here for.
And maybe that'd be number 4 on my why you do this, I guess. I don't know, is to please the board. And that's pretty much impossible.
Speaking as a board member.
Well, speaking of someone who sends reports to boards all the time, because boards are made up of financial and non-financial people. So they all want different things, and trying to do one report that does it all is very difficult.
Possible.
Exactly.
And yet important, speaking as a board chair. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Dirk. He is doing this as a business, but also it is his ministry, and he does see the impact. So he makes what he does really affordable. He is a strategic partner with Venture 19. So if you lose this, his info is always on our resources page under partnerships. So we're glad to have him. Thanks so much, Dirk. We love our Luke and our Dirk.
Just call me Doc.
Doc.
Like,
I answer free questions. So I'm not, if you send me an email with a question, I answer a lot of questions free as a Venture 19 friend. So don't, ask away. I love helping people. So
he does. That is his gift, is helping. So thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day.